Of course, I always mess up OBS. Well, you're recording and streaming in three, two, one on Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025 at 12:02 p.m. Eastern Time. Mr. Mike Shelby, you first came on here, I want to say like summer 2020. I met you through Dale. And yeah, and it's been a minute. But for everybody listening, I got go follow his Twitter that's in the description as well as your website, grayzonestore.com area study. Yeah, so I texted you about doing this. Because you had spoken you accurately. Yeah, I think you were saying a lot last summer, even before they tried to blow his head off. You were like, we don't see the same
Mhm.
intent. Well, I guess it kind of was the same intensity trying to blow his head off. But other than that, it wasn't the same fever pitch static of 2020.
Mhm.
Obviously, COVID, BLM, Antifa, all that shit. And then, yeah, even after the election, you didn't see the same. I remember in 2016, I remember I was at my grandmother's house. And I remember the next day seeing coordinated protests in like Chicago and New York. You didn't see that. You still had some, last hurrahs, but you didn't see it. And I think as Dolio tweeted yesterday, he was like, a lot of y'all are acting like it's VJ Day. Like no one surrendered shit. All right, good. Trump won. Election wasn't stolen. They didn't kill him. That's all great. But it's definitely not over. So I kind of want,
Mhm.
if you could, because you were correct, there wasn't the same madness. Even on Inauguration Day, 2016, that DC was on fire. I think a lot of people forget that. We haven't seen that. I don't think that it's gone forever, but and no one has a crystal ball, so just for everyone listening, this show is going to be primarily speculation. Um, what do you see coming for this year, 2026, 2020? And because it's been a minute since you've been on, can you just introduce yourself and tell everyone who you are?
Yeah, sure. Mike Shelby, I was an intelligence analyst. I got out of the Army as a sergeant and then went over to the dark side and got into contracting. Spent a few years in Iraq and Afghanistan as a soldier and contractor. And then back in 2016, I distinctly remember the exact moment. I was not a Trump supporter then, but I was a Rush baby. So, I mean, lifelong conservative. But I remember seeing this woman being accosted by this feral mob waving Mexican flags in her face and throwing eggs at her, like eggs and tomatoes. And she's trying to get into this hotel. Y'all probably saw this video, right? This blonde haired lady in a Trump jersey, uh, trying to get into this hotel in some city. I think it was like San Jose, California, or something like that. And there's a cop on the other side of the hotel door, and the hotels are obviously locked because there's like an ongoing protest slash riot outside. And the cop will not let this woman escape the mob. And I just thought, this is not right. This is what's that country song that ain't my America? Leonard's old new
Yeah.
Leonard Skinner song. Yeah. And that's exactly how I felt. And I said, I've spent so much time in Iraq and Afghanistan. Why don't I just start tracking these far left militant groups like Antifa? And started reading about them. And they're like, hey, these guys are cell based. Guess who else is? Pretty much every single insurgent organization and terrorist organization on earth. So I've actually got a lot of practice doing this. And the rest is kind of history.
Yeah. There's kind of a funny, yeah, it's yeah, you have all these, kind of disgruntled, guys our age and above go and serve, do exactly this, then you come home and it's all this, and you're like, hey, I just learned how to like find, fix, and finish this. And then there's almost like a little bit of a Scooby-Doo moment. You're like, this is exactly like the cells I saw over there. And then you're like, wait, weren't we funding some of the cells over there? And then the light comes on. You're like, I was talking to EM Burlingame last night. We were just chatting on the phone, and he was like, make no mistake, like the revolutionaries are never the ones that finish it. And of course they're not. They're always shot in the head once it's finished. They're useful idiots. He's like the real muscle is, whatever mercenaries, SF. But nonetheless, whether they're useful idiots or not, they still cause a lot of damage. I mean, obviously 2020, they move, they can disrupt, they can cause economic damage. There's even just the very idea of, well, I hope the election goes one way because otherwise we got to board up the windows. That alone is already they're in your head rent free, and they're already inflicting pain on you in some form, even if it's just hey, let's just make sure the tank's filled up. Even just little shit like that. It's a projection of force for a political reason or terrorism. So because we haven't seen it yet, January 20th went off without a hitch. Do you think it's the calm before the storm, or is it a legitimate? It's not I guess, a top-down calm, but it's an actual. They're just not organized yet, but it's coming.
Mhm. I think it's a number of factors. It definitely is I think, a rebuilding period. They had outlived after the 2020 election was fortified. Antifa and all these far left groups, it kind of outlived their usefulness. The right wing organizing, like the street level action, Proud Boys, and all these other groups, Patriot Prayer up in the Pacific Northwest. There's just not a real need to have like a street level action anymore. And so, yeah, I think those networks clearly atrophied. It's a muscle, it's a tool. You don't take care of it, it's going to dilapidate. And
Yeah,
so,
I deteriorate, atrophy.
yeah, deteriorate. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so all those networks atrophied, and people went about their lives, and there was just not a great need for street level action anymore. And so they are in this period where they have to kind of rebuild those networks. And that's what the Festivals of Resistance was all about. This thing that happened on the weekend of January 18th, just this last weekend, expressly for that purpose. All of these far left blogs put it out. They said, hey, go to these things. There's going to be workshops, and it's a great time to network and, gather again as a community. And so they are in that period. I think that's one of the things that's happening kind of at the tactical level is they're maybe some of these groups are trying to shake off the rust and kind of reactivate these affinity groups. But at the same time, Antifa is just useful idiots. They were a tool used by the anti-Trump elite. And so, the question is, well, when is everyone going to start to reactivate? And it's pretty clear, like when they get the green light, when the funding gets turned back on. And it's not just funding. Okay, it's funding is a crucial part. You can't do it without funding, but it actually is much deeper than that. You need these non-governmental organizations. You need these NGOs to build essentially a campaign strategy.
Hmm.
And I think the election of Trump shocked a lot of people. And my general sense, I don't know this for sure, but my general sense is they're kind of reassessing current conditions. And so you just have to ask yourself, well, is Antifa the appropriate, you select the gear for the mission, and is Antifa the appropriate gear for this mission, or at least this phase of what's happening? And I think no, and that's probably a good reason why Antifa is not active right now.
Yeah, yeah. I just try to. I don't know if it makes me a sociopath or what, but I always just try to remove myself emotionally from things and just look at it as a game. Like, what's the right move? Like, whoever fucking, the Yankees signed Roger Clemens for $100 billion in his last year, and it's like, yeah, it's the right move. You have the money. He's a ace, whatever. It's just the right move. Don't get tied up in the emotions of it. And so I would look at it and go, what's the right move? I legitimately don't think they expected him to survive Butler. I really don't. I think from like the weird high frequency trading right before it to CNN covering it to the
Mm.
clear, I don't think incompetence, in my opinion, complicity of the Secret Service. I don't think the individual guys, but the structure. I don't think he was supposed to survive that. So I think that entire thing, everything after that was just this weird sort of like that wasn't supposed to happen. It's like if you have a friend and you didn't invite him to the party and then he still somehow gets there and everyone's like, how the fuck did Tommy get here? It's just kind of a weird, I don't think he was supposed to survive. So I think you're probably right in that. I also think that, I guess, Elon buying Twitter for all of its pitfalls and censorship that is still abundant, as well as sort of the Zuckerberg move. And I don't think Zuckerberg's had a change of heart. I think he's a capitalist and he is just moving with the tides. And once you have one of the major platforms start to allow free speech and less free speech, but more about, and then the traffic and thus ad revenue that comes from free speech. That's the main thing. So I think Meta's looking at when they all censor, it's fine. But when one of them starts making a couple shekels off, hey, we're the free speech app, the other ones are going to follow that fiduciary incentive. So I think that's what that's coming from with Meta. I don't think he's had a change of heart. That all being said, as important, if not more than Antifa and BLM, in my uneducated, unexperienced opinion, is the equivalent of digital foot soldiers, either censorship or, using bots to skew, ratios of, I think America's good. I love it. And then, 100,000 comments of you're a Nazi. Well, now that these things are to a degree being cleaned up, I think that's also something they didn't expect. I don't think they expected Trump to survive. I don't think they expected not having full spectrum control of social media because that was so big. And now you have shit getting community noted in like hours that used to take months and it's dying very quickly. And so it's just all these little fires popping up. I don't know if you've ever seen those like those advanced firefighting systems where it's actually like an IR laser and it will like find smoke. They use them in like server farms and they'll shoot like a jet of foam at them. You can pick off fires long before they take down the whole building. That's kind of what's happening, in my opinion, with Twitter right now. And I think that is a massively underappreciated thing as to what they're going to do now. Because that was so huge. Costs what orders of magnitude less than moving physical Antifa people. It's just a bot farm, a narrative, moves at the literal speed of light, and they don't have that. So I think that combined with Trump not dying, it kind of seems like they've got a little bit of the, punch drunk right now. Like they caught an uppercut that they weren't expecting. But and to me that doesn't mean it's over. It just means it's going to come back in some new form. I have no idea though. I don't know why I'm pontificating. You're the expert in this shit, not me. I'm just sitting here talking. I'm like, I should ask someone. Like, oh wait.
Well, I hate the term expert for obvious reasons, but I just want to say, look, I don't know everything, and but I read a lot,
Yeah.
and I observe a lot of what the far left is doing, and so the rest is just kind of common sense. Like once you have the puzzle pieces, you put them together. It's not
Sure.
like I'm not the
Well,
world's foremost expert on these guys.
relatively. But if somebody emails me and goes, "Hey, you're the expert in starting podcasts," I'm like, "No, I'm not." And they're like, "Well, compare it to everyone else I know." I'm like, "All right,
Mm.
fair." So in that sense, like, no, you have a much better grasp on this. Do you think that there's different modes to go about this? Is maybe the root not kind of domestic instability? Is it maybe not Antifa, BLM, George Floyd shit? Is there a way to do it externally? Would you want to do disruption at the southern border? Would you want to, if you are the opposition to Trump in whatever national or supranational entity that is, would you want to scale shit up in Ukraine? Would you want to scale shit up in Israel? Would you want to, I don't know, poke China more to fuck with Taiwan? Would you want a global instability to hit Trump? Because you don't have to do it domestically. I think that's probably the most effective way, but it's not the only one on the table. Like, you can absolutely just kind of fuck shit up internationally. Do you think that's a method, or is that assigning too much power to them, assuming too much power?
Well, I think you're onto something important, which is what is the ideal end state? What's the objective? And once you've identified what the ideal end state is for an adversary enemy, then we can go about identifying potential courses of action, doing course of action development, and actually looking at here are their capabilities and their assets. How can these things be used towards this ultimate objective? So, honestly, um they want Trump. They they want a one party rule. That okay, obvious that has not changed. The kind of the tactical and operational condition has changed, but the like long term strategic objective of one party rule of elites has not changed at all.
In 10,000 years.
Right? Yeah. So that's I think that's what I think they call it first principles or whatever. Like that. That is the bedrock of all of our thinking after that. And so, yeah, you're right. Then the question becomes, well, here's what they want to achieve, and how can they do this most effectively? I'm So they want Trump from office. They want to weaken the. They want to relegate the GOP to a regional party. And you look at the history of political parties in the United States, and lots of political parties no longer exist. The Whigs and and all these other things. And so they want to destroy. I say the GOP, and really, I think they're pretty okay with having the, I don't know if you want to call them controlled opposition, but the controllable opposition in conservative ink, which
Yeah.
I don't think Trump is conservative ink. And so that, I think that's why they're happy to go along to get along with establishment Republicans. So, uh, yeah, they want the establishment Republicans to be in charge because I think they're far more, I don't know, those are part of the elites.
Yeah.
So at any rate, yeah, course of action development. Then we go back through and say, okay, well, how do they get to this end state? Frankly, I'm concerned about a financial crisis. Ultimately, if they do want to adopt more central control, more, I don't think. Well, some of them obviously are socialists, but I do think they want much greater control, like this central digital bank currency thing. They want greater control over how people spend their money and what they spend it on. And so, yeah, maybe an engineered financial crisis or some sort of collapse on Trump. They blame it on capitalism, or they blame it on trickle up economics. They blame it on nationalism or economic nationalists. Look how these people have ruined the financial system. It was going so great under Biden, and and now I don't know. It's tough to say, but I think that's one particular. I think that's an area that is a real possibility in the next maybe in the next 1 year. The other thing too is they're really gunning for the progressive Democrats are really gunning for the midterms because their whole strategy is to tie up Trump in the courts
Mhm.
and to exercise all this blue state coalition power, going into and build up opposition, try to fracture the MAGA coalition, and take back the House and or the Senate in the midterms. And if they can do that, then they basically tank the next 2 years of the Trump administration, the remaining 2 years. If they fail to do that, I think it substantially raises the risk, and I would not be surprised to see a color revolution happen after 2026. Or, I think 2020 was an attempted popular revolution. I would not be surprised to see another one of those between 26 and 28. And there's one big reason for that. Well, there's lots of big reasons, but one thing to keep in mind is that Sean Fain, he's the director of the United Auto Workers. For the past few years, he's been trying to get all of these unions across the country to renegotiate their contracts with an expiration date on May 1st, 2028. And that's International Workers' Day. It's a big socialist day. And can you imagine potentially tens of millions of Americans striking off the job on May 1st as a part of some big general strike? Because that's exactly what he's pushing for. And so I think it's another reason to expect 2028 is going to be very tumultuous. And as bad as the last few elections we've had, the 28 election, um, it may be catastrophic. I think there's a good reason to believe why the 28 election is going to be far worse than the last one.
Yeah. It's first principle, it's one party rule, and then the next is what is our how do we get there? Well, Trump can't you can't run again, so there's no how do we make it look so bad that he couldn't get elected again? Because that was, I think, a lot of the first term was make shit so crazy that he can't get elected again. Like, look what happens when Trump's in office.
Yeah, make him an illegitimate president. That was
What?
the whole narrative. Because if a president is illegitimate, then the next logical conclusion is that he has to be replaced with someone who is legitimate.
Yeah, illegitimate. If that doesn't work, it's just very Pavlovian. When Trump's in office, look, fires in cities and pandemic. It doesn't matter if it makes sense. It's just you relate. It's just, you know, bad stimulus event. Associate the two in your brain, and that's all you have to do. You don't have to target thinkers. You have to target the vast majority of people, which don't do that. You can't really. You could do that if you have no other options. It would be make shit look bad when Trump's in office. Now, let's just whatever pandemic 2.0, Antifa 2.0, whatever it is. You could argue that that is a way to sort of prevent Trump 2.0, which I think the logical step would be advance in 2028. Just it seems to be whatever. Okay. And even if not that, even if you're going for like a more kind of meta idea, you could say just associate what Trump is. American exceptionalism. It's okay to love your country. It's okay to put your country first, take care of your workers, your all the good stuff. Associate that with bad. And bad could be you fucking release Ebola in LA, you burn LA to the ground, yeah, whatever. Fucking, I don't know, Germany invades France to anything. Just
Yeah,
bad anything. Finance, cyber attack, whatever. This happened when not Trump's in office, but when the idea of Trump's in office of America good is not a good thing. We need globalism. That's what I would do if I were them. I would just associate the idea of Trump with, I would just create turmoil.
yeah. They can't just limit it to Trump. They- Uh, Trump is going to have a successor, I guess, by all
Yeah.
indications. It's JD Vance. Uh, just to take a step back, can I add one more thing about
Yeah.
20,
I
what
don't care.
happened in 2020?
Yeah.
The only reason why the Summer of Love happened, that like you boil this down, the linchpin in that entire thing is that so many people were out of work. The lockdowns, and then the lockdown induced recession, and then they had stimulus, they had walking around money, and you had people who would go out and protest. We know there were paid protesters. And so there was a situation where millions of Americans were happy. They wanted to go out and protest anyway. Now they're getting paid and they don't have to go to work Wednesday morning, so they can go out and riot all Tuesday night. So all the people who were predicting that we were going to have another 2025 insurrection on the order of 2020, where do these people come from? They have lives. They've got rent. They've got families. You know, they got to put food on the table. This situation was really not conducive to some kind of mass mobilization riot or even like a mass mobilization protest. And so the question then becomes, well, how do you, if this is their chosen course of action to manufacture a crisis that puts lots of people out of work and you give them stimulus again, well, I'm like you, I don't want to ascribe too much power to them, but some kind of engineered financial crisis, and it doesn't even have to be engineered. It's just like finger on the scale type event. Maybe a cyber attack against the Swift system, cyber attack against the markets. I mean, there are a lot of potential causes for this one effect. But how do you get lots of people irate and out of work and willing to go protest and willing to go riot at the same time that they can be paid? And a recession with stimulus still seems like a pretty clear option.
Yeah. A pandemic just doesn't have the same kick again. I mean, whenever people are like the new monkey, like the general response is, "Oh, will you shut the fuck up?" Like it's just sort of you did it, you blew your wad, and I don't think that they think this far ahead, but there is something to take from, and it's, I mean, make a pun, but it's there is almost a vaccination quality to what you do. If you don't kill the target, it gets a lot stronger. If Mike's health is at 5 and I hit you with I hit you with a weapon that's only graded to 4, it's not that I reduce your health to 1. Your health goes up to like 10 now because you understand that attack. And so like it's a 0 day exploit. You can't do the COVID thing again. And so if you don't kill Trump, if you don't, slow walk us in a World War III, if you don't have complete and total digital lockdown and then the end of history, what you have are not just a return, but a total pendulum shift to where you have an excessively free speech, I guess, landscape, to where you have an excessively pro-American thing, to where you have an excessively, hey, fuck foreign aid, fuck these foreign wars, all this stuff. So it's not just if you come for the king, you best not miss, right? It's not just that you missed, it's now you're never going to be able to take a shot at the president again because now the motorcade is, an MRAP. So, but I also don't think that they care about that. I think they just go for the throat. And I think one way to look at it is They love power in the same way people like you and I like love our families. And that like I'm gonna try to do it the most constructive way, the most financially prudent way. But at the end of the day, if I have to, I'll tank this podcast, I'll burn this apartment down, I'll sell my car, and I'll take up arms to defend my family. At the end of the day, I will spill my own blood and die. They have that desire for power. And that's how I think we need, at least in my opinion, I don't know. But I think that's how we need to look at it. Like, there's nothing they won't do. If they don't do something, it's not because it's bad, it's because tactically they don't think it's the best move. And so, zero-day exploit, how do you get that, that pandemic shock again? I think you'd have to do like a cyber attack, some EMP or EMP disguised to something else. But I think that's what you'd have to do is something that we have. If a pandemic happens, we all kind of, yeah, fucking, you got a distance, whatever. You need to have something that is as novel and unsettling as the pandemic was in 2020. I think that's what a cyber attack would be. Just something that you don't even consider. Like your car doesn't start. Like, how do you go about that? Or it's summer and no air conditioners work. Just little stuff like that. Or your Uber, you can't get Uber because the phone's down, or you have like limited time per day on the internet. I think that's what it would be. That's what I would do if I were them. I don't really know where I was going with that, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's one reason why they build up all these problems they want to solve as being existential. Because if something is an existential threat, then now you have a lot greater leeway in how you go about solving it. I would just say this also: they look at power. There's so much moral. They wrap it in a moral justification because they say, "Oh, we're doing this for humanity. We're doing this for a sacred democracy." Everything is a moral imperative for them. We need mass immigration because look, can you believe there's a picture of this woman crying that we need to let her into our country and all these things. And so the other thing also I would add to that is in terms of inducing or manufacturing a crisis, it cannot be. I don't think it can be actually existential. I don't think they want to risk destroying the system
No,
that they want control over
no.
because it it can't be. I mean, it's taken them generations to build. It can't be rebuilt rapidly. And so, I don't like an EMP. I mean, sure, some kind of national crisis. Sure. I think they have, I, I think they need to manufacture something, but I don't actually think it could be existential.
No. Yeah, no, you don't actually wanna like we now know like COVID, you're like, yeah, it's fucking nothing. Yeah, it's gonna kill off elderly people. It wasn't Ebola. Like, 'cause you don't actually want that. Do you think to kind of go back a month? Do you think that's what all the drones were? Do you think there's any credence to the idea that it was looking for a weapon, I don't know, an EMP signal? I'm listening to a book right now, and there's a chapter about the National Geospatial Agency, and there's all the human Elan signal. There's one I hadn't heard of. I think it's Mason, and it's
Imagine, yeah.
as yeah, it's like sniffing. And I mean, is that not only did they not expect Trump to survive, did they have an ace up their sleeve that didn't work? Was there something? Was there supposed to be? I mean, man, imagine an EMP right before the fires in LA. How much worse that would have been. Maybe there were supposed to be LA type fires in multiple cities. I don't know. Some directed energy fucking in a semi truck trailer just shooting beams at mountainsides. Like, do you think there was something to that? Do you think that they did go for like a black swan event and it didn't work? I mean,
Well,
no one has
we're
that,
getting
but
we're
yeah,
getting a little outside
speculating.
my
Yeah,
domain of
sure.
expertise. But listen, my heuristic, I guess, for all this drone stuff is uh, I would just automatically make an initial assumption that it actually is the U.S. government,
Yeah,
not
always,
Martians.
always.
So the
Yeah,
the drone stuff, and again, I don't know, and I actually didn't even look into it because I don't know enough about it to say anything conclusively.
yeah,
But I mean, I would just assume it's military drones.
yeah. No, absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah,
just as an initial assumption, and we can always go back and
It's
change
always,
that in light of new information. But
yeah.
where is it now? I mean, it was a thing for 15 minutes, and now it's background noise. So it was either like uh, it was either existential and critical, and no one cares about it, or it wasn't existential at all.
Yeah. No, and I said that a month ago on the shows. I was like, I think that this is just another news story that in a month we won't be talking about. And yeah, I don't mean to just go in and speculate wildly. I'm just on the theme of what we're talking about now. It made me think like maybe they already tried it. I don't know. Um, yeah, I'm just like theoretically, what would be the next things then? Do you think there's also do you think there's any evidence to like it's like the Eisenhower, Kennedy, Smedley, Butler. Do you think Trump learned enough to be like if you allow the wars to keep going, then they won't go totally cutthroat on you? Because that seems to be like the lifeblood of the machine, right? Is you got to endless wars. Do you think that there's a little bit of them that's like keep the contracts flowing, you keep and I'm not condoning it, but just again tactically, you don't cut off the aid to Israel and Ukraine, maybe because I don't think the opposition's a monolith. If you have a lot of them still getting kind of crazy checks, we're gonna go demolish this, and then BlackRock's gonna rebuild it, and then Vanguard's gonna finance, and then Exxon's gonna. Do you think you can like throw I don't know, throw a couple. You don't have to appease all the dogs. Do you think you can throw like a couple treats to them, and some of them will be like, "Yeah, I'm not that. I don't really care if you guys get Trump or not. We're still getting contracts." So you almost kind of divide the opposition.
I don't know. I remember in 2008, right after the status of forces agreement in Iraq, I think was it Camp Slayer? I don't know. We were up at Camp Slayer, and there's like this. I mean, they swear to God, they had literally just got done building this like massive concrete, like bunker type facility. This is U.S. forces contractors, KBR, Halliburton, whoever was
Mm.
building this stuff. I don't know, Aegis, or I don't even know what they do. But and then I remember thinking is like they literally just passed a status of forces agreement, which U.S. troops are means we're withdrawing from Iraq, basically, in a certain period of time. And I just remember thinking, man, whose pockets got lined with this massive, I don't even know how much it costs, but 20, $50 million, whatever, huge facility. And then I asked them like, hey, what are we doing with that? And someone was just like, oh yeah, I think the Iraqi army's taking it over.
Yeah,
So there's always grift and there's just always BS. And I think Trump is sincere, and I think Elon Musk is sincere. And I go, I'm still undecided on Elon Musk if he's like a good guy or bad guy,
same.
but he's doing good things so far, for the
I'm
most part.
cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, but so I think they are sincere in trying to reduce that fraud, waste, and abuse. And so again, I'm like you, I'm optimistic that they'll make some progress here. Hey, on the topic of Elon Musk and all these other
Yeah,
guys, I I'm of the same mind on Mark Zuckerberg. There is I think there has been a come to Jesus moment for a lot of these people. Like, was it Sundar Pichai and all these other people who were probably vehemently anti-Trump for the past 8 years, and now they're kind of realizing, like, oh, hey, actually, this guy's in power and he really means it this time. Like, we probably need to go kiss the ring. Those are not America First people. They're going along to get along.
Mhm.
I look at a guy like Elon Musk. I think he was red pilled on a lot of things, and so back in probably like 2016, you start to see this. I think the fracturing of the elite, and this is very very important because this is how you get civil wars. And I actually think you probably saw this post from a few days ago when the elite fractures into the elite and counter elite. Historically, we think about revolution and state breakdown as bottom up, angry peasants and torches and pitchforks. And that's actually not what history says. History says that you get revolutions and civil wars and state breakdown when the elites fracture into the elites and counter elites. And that's because one section of the elites has effectively been locked out of power. And so I do see Trump and probably Elon Musk, but I see guys like Peter Thiel and maybe Mark Andreessen and some of these other people looking at there are two visions for this country. There's the visions of the elites. That's the status quo. That's the establishment we've had, the post 9/11. Actually, maybe even going back to the Clintons, kind of global establishment. And then you have this America First counter elite. And these two sides really are locked into a political battle over who is going to control the future of the country. And when Elon Musk said that this is a civilizational, uh, this is existential for our civilization. If
Fork in the
Kamala
road.
Harris wins, like that's it, it's over. I actually agree with him. And if he does actually believe that, then he is on the side of the counter elites. And so this is concerning because this is a zero sum game. If yeah, we're getting to the point where it is going to be, we're eventually going to have an election where the winner takes all,
Hmm.
maybe by necessity. You go back and you read the Unrestricted Warfare, which is the Chinese manual published back in the 1990s, basically about how to defeat the United States. And one of the things that book says, it was written by two Chinese PLA, People's Liberation Army colonels. They said you have to force the United States, in so many words, you have to force the United States into a situation where it has to choose national survival or its strategic objectives. We choose survival or Taiwan, right? That's the situation that China wants to give us, and we kind of do the same thing. We try to force our adversaries into a strategic dilemma as well. And so my big concern is that in the next decade, maybe even by the end of this decade, we actually will be forced into one of those existential crises where we will get one party rule or one faction rule, elite or counter elite, just by the necessity of a national crisis, a world war, a cyber attack. I mean, who knows? I'm kind of rambling, but I tell you,
No,
that's something that really concerns me. And the end of the decade is not so far away that we shouldn't be worried about it.
no, it's already here. Just I used to when actually during the pandemic when I worked at a liquor store, I just hated it so much. And I would always go in and, fucking clock in and be like, Jesus Christ, I have 8 hours to do this. And then, I'd clock out and I'd be like, and now I'm leaving, I'm going home. And every time I'd go in there, I'd just tell myself, I'd say, you're already leaving. It's already happening right now, even though I'm working. And then at some point you go, I'm already leaving. And then you're actually already leaving. And I remember like doing that with the podcast. I think it was summer 2020. I was like, it's already 2025. It's already here. And I was like, no, it's fucking not. And I was like, yes, it's already here. You're already 2025. Now I'm talking to you. So the end of the decade is already here. It's already here. Um, I think you're right on. I have to. It's not. I wish I had a more scientific method, but I don't. But I have to just kind of go on like gut on like who's having a come to Jesus moment. And I could, who knows, maybe I'm gullible and, this would be a terrible episode to one day look back on. I think Elon had a come to Jesus moment. I think Mark Andreessen, for full disclosure, I didn't know he existed a month ago. I listened to him on Rogan.
Mm-hmm.
There seems to be some actual kind of come to Jesus moment. And it's, I can't describe it, but it's like, ultimately trust your gut. You can have all the sensors in the world, but ultimately it's just like you just have to have is something up. It's just your subconscious brain is seeing a signal somewhere that you consciously can't pin. The next level, and I think Elon is correct, it's civilizational. Um, the next level is somebody just going along to get along. And that is obviously not preferred to a come to Jesus moment, but I would also rather a go along to get along person to a true believer, a true communist, a true Marxist, a true globalist. You're like, oh, Zuckerberg's just going any which way the money flows. I'm like, which means he can be worked with. Doesn't mean trust him. I'm not saying make him fucking sec def, but I'm saying he owns Meta, he owns Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp and Messenger, and he's willing to kiss the ring. Take it. You don't have to take him into your fold. You don't have to welcome him as a brother. But if he's going along to get along, go for it. Bezos is just going along to get along. And he owns Amazon, AWS, and Blue Origin and Whole Foods. Let them go along to get along, sure. Keep that in your mind though, that they're not one of your inner circle. Just always know that. Hunter S. Thompson, fear is a great motivator, but it's like an animal. Let it pull your chariot, but keep a shotgun trained on it. Yeah, sure. Use it. Don't be a purist. I do think I and maybe I am gullible, but I do think Elon had a come to Jesus moment. And you could say, he really just wants to achieve his goals of getting us off this planet. Yeah, I don't think that's a bad goal. If he's truly just doing that, okay, good.
We have to before the Chinese is the
Yeah,
bottom line.
absolutely. It's a zero-sum game. So I think Clay and I talked about this. We were like, there is no like perfect outcome. It's either the globalist, communist, literal pedophiles who think that humanity is a scourge and a cancer and want to truly kill everything off. And then there are the guys that want to become trillionaire space barons. I don't necessarily agree with 100% of the trillionaire space barons, but man, we do have a Venn diagram of interests in that they also want the US to be strong and prosperous.
Mm.
Yeah, maybe they're not thinking about Tommy and do I get $1 trillion of lithium? But you know what? They don't want my neighborhoods overran with 50 IQ cannibals. Hey, you know what? In the grand scheme of compromise, I'll take that one. Is there going to be some unjust wealth accumulation? Sure. Are Elon and Bezos going to plug into machines and live to 500 and be worth $10 trillion? Probably. And would it be better if that was distributed? Yeah, sure. But in terms of like grand compromise, the other side has said in so many words that they want you in a pod eating bugs. And if you'd like to, you can get the other pod and go undergo euthanasia. Never have an identity, never love your family. You are a cancer. You are a bad person for eating meat and exercising. And I don't know if you saw the day after the election, the Wall Street Journal released a study on religious right-wing people are more likely to have lesions on your brain. And Tim Dillon goes, the comedian, he goes, that's how you're trying to bridge the gap? Because hey guys, don't worry, they have lesions on their brain. So it's a compromise between two people is pretty good. A compromise in a group of people is like you agree on where you go to dinner. It's a little less what you want, but it's you get some. Okay, state level, national level. What about civilizational level? You're probably not going to have a lot of options. And so I'm looking at the one of, yeah, I'll take the trillionaire space baron way because they also want a strong US. I'll take that win. Um, and I do, and maybe he's just a genius manipulator. I do think Elon. I do th I do think he's had a change of heart, and any part of me that's hesitant to say that, I really do have to kind of come back to like a biblical of, he who was without sin cast the first stone. Like I know I've changed. I know I've changed in the life of this podcast, and I think I've changed for the better in ways that 5 years ago I wouldn't have believed you if you told me I'd changed that way. I do have to extend that to sure he is worth $500 billion. He is still a human. He still shits. He still pops pimples. Why can't he have the same self-reflection that I've had? And so, I mean, yeah, I do think he's changed. And so if it comes back to one party rule, it probably will be a winner takes all type thing. And I don't know,
Oh, it has to be. Yeah, it
it
has to
has
be.
to be, and
Yeah.
it might already be underway. I don't know. I think 5 years ago I would have been like, no, the democracy, the great experiment. And now I'm looking at it, I'm like, they want you dead. Like,
Oh yeah,
there's kind of no middle
absolutely.
ground where I'm like, hey, the other side wants you dead, eating Soylent, and I don't know, fucking burning your crucifix. Like,
Mm.
it's not much of a choice. Yeah, so I don't know. That was my
Do you
ramble.
know? Do you know Joshua Steinman?
No.
Okay. Yeah, he's a guy worth of you should follow him. He's a former Navy officer, and he was also spent 40 years on the Trump National Security Council. Excuse me, he was a senior staffer. And he said something, I don't know if he created this or I don't know. It's called game theoretic defection. In game theory, this is what game theoretic defection is what happens when you're playing chess or a game against someone and they continually bend the rules. And then eventually you say, you know what? It's not even the same game that we started playing. It's a different game and I'm not playing anymore. And you take your pieces and you go home and the game ends, which would be the end of the United States as we know it today. And, we have to really think about game theoretic defection because the rules have changed so drastically. I mean, even like these Trump pardons and the Biden pardons, it's just like, which I'm not a huge fan of well, certainly not pardoning murderers and all these things that Biden pardoned. But it is I don't know, it's just the first Trump term. They just talk about guardrails. Oh my God, it's just guardrails. It's like every president moves the guardrails. It's just a problem when the guy that you don't like is moving the guardrails. But my point is, and all these also these executive actions and stuff, right? I mean, just basically creating rules by fiat through executive action. Point is, we're not playing the same game anymore, and it is going to be zero sum because I do think we have entered game theoretic defection, and at a certain, and that's state breakdown, and
Mm.
then that's when the federal system no longer functions. I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's that does kind of, and I mean, I know just through my own life in this podcast of always trying to, kind of deflect back to like the higher noble ideas of like democracy and the will of the people. But it does get to a point. It's like the way I look at, like a suicide by cop. Yeah, you can be some a cab, all cops are, white pit, whatever. And there are bad ones, sure. But man, like when someone runs at them with a gun with the intent of being killed, like at that point, there's a choice between me and Mike are cops. We didn't wake up saying let's go kill some people today. But it now comes down to this guy is running at us with a knife. He clearly wants us to kill him. But if we don't, he's probably going to kill us. I don't want to take a life. But now this guy has consciously surrendered his gift of life. And now I could be noble and let him kill me and put down my sword. But now, and I don't have a family, but now my wife and kids don't have a father. Okay, so now innocent people are being punished for the actions of this person. That is, and I've tried my hardest not to like slide down this way, but it is getting to a point where I'm like, I mean, forget the Hurricane Helene stuff. Don't forget, in the first couple months of the Biden administration, Biden cut off the flow of monoclonal antibodies to Florida
Hmm.
because they weren't medical aid in what the one thing that was working other than like ivermectin. He cut that off because they weren't following the fucking quarantine shit and because they're kicking out immigrants. When you throw all this money at Ukraine, when you do have such a disastrous withdrawal from the Middle East, to when you don't help the people in East Palestine, to when you do nothing on the southern border, the 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 chick who was killed at UGA, Lakin, that
Yep.
was at the intramural fields. That's where I literally used to park my car when I went to UGA. Like innocent people, and they do hate you. I mean, from either demoralization techniques of, like Lizzo's fat ass playing the flute to literally not sending any aid to people in the most dire of consequences. You get a point where you get to a point where you go, we're not playing this game, and it is zero sum now. And I've tried and we've tried and everyone's tried to have some form of democracy. But it's no longer just they disagree with you or they're evil or bake the cake. It's getting lethal now. You don't get aid if a hurricane hits you. You don't get aid if 100,000 tons of chlorine dioxide go up. You don't get monoclonal antibodies. It's now very clear that it's coming to blows. And now it comes down to there's no honor in laying down your life to preserve a system which won't even be preserved. It's going one party rule. They're not going
Hmm.
to continue it. So it's either you or them continue it. And now also, well, if somebody gets, if a drunk driver hits someone and kills them, should they have life in prison or isn't 10 years long enough to learn their lesson? I don't doubt someone in 10 years probably learns their lesson. But what it does serve, a life sentence, is a deterrent to future people who are going to get fucked up and who were going to plow into a minivan of kids. So you're now defending the innocent who didn't fuck up their life. Like, hey, yeah, you probably learned your lesson. You're spending life in jail because it sends a message to everyone else not to take innocent lives. So it's now getting to a point of like, hey, I'm with you. Noble idea. Keep the democracy experiment going. They want you fucking dead. We can't the game. We can't play the game. We're trying to play the game. Like we're
Mhm.
trying to stay friends, but you keep stealing from my wallet. You're fucking sending dick pics to my wife. My door is always unlocked. You hacked my email. We can't be friends anymore. And I
Mhm.
wish we were, but we cannot be friends anymore because if we don't, you're now hurting myself and innocent people, and there's no nobility in just lying down to die so you don't offend someone else to preserve something that won't even be preserved.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, that was
yeah,
my point,
yeah,
poorly stated. My natural tendency is to say, well, let's not break the rule. They're breaking the rules, fine. Let's not break the rules.
yeah.
Uh,
Like
but we're past that point to where maybe we should, if they're going to break rules, maybe we should just break rules too, because they're doing all these things and
it's
stacking
over.
up the deck in their favor.
It's over.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think that is an appropriate way to view the situation. The game is already over. The question is, are you gonna play to your last piece till the very end, or you're gonna win the game before they do, because that's the situation we're in. I think, unfortunately.
It is, and it's also, and then you have to start walking it out to other degrees. Okay, well, are we just, is America just some tiny country where you guys grew? Well, no, it's also the global hegemon. And so if this falls, it doesn't fall in a vacuum. And you now have to start looking at, sure, is it convenient that, I also live in the country that's morally and ethically good to survive? Sure, I get it. But you also have to start looking at, well, if this does collapse, what happens? What happens? Where does the world go? Who's the new hegemon?
Mhm.
And do the billions of people who live under that new hegemon, is that a net good or bad? Which one is more moral and ethical? I would say keeping the United, for all of its flaws, sure, keeping the United States as a global hegemon is also the most ethical and moral thing you can do. For all of its flaws, sure, versus a China-led system. So therefore, and I also have to be very aware of like treading into the waters of for the greater good, because every atrocity is done in that vein or done in the name of that. So I also have to be very careful of well, it's for the greater good. That being said, the game is over. Through the grace of God, Trump didn't get his head blown off. Through the grace of God, the election wasn't stolen, which I think is probably a signal of there are probably some people in the government, in the intelligence community, who had this discussion and they're like, if it gets stolen again, like this is going to collapse and then everything's going to collapse. There might have even been international incentive for Trump to win because if they go, America goes, it all goes. And so, and then what does that look like? Is that a suspension of elections? Is that setting up like fascism? Like, I can honestly say I don't know. I have no fucking idea. It's, but I know that the game is over. That there is no, I don't know, honest discourse. There's no, what word am I looking for? Good faith engagement in this isn't This isn't like your mom and like I always when I was little, I remember like whatever one day like my parents were arguing, and I just remember at dinner that night, me and my three brothers, we said grace, and then they said everyone in my they go like, and they kissed each other, and they go, Mom and Dad love each other very much, and it was just to remind us that like they're still there and they're still together, and I'm seeing them tomorrow, I love them to death. But that was always so important to me because there's some quote like the best gift a father can give to his son is to love his mother. I don't see that here. I see one side going, "Hey, I want to kiss your mom," but the mom's a crack whore who just tried to kill you, who came to school with a gun, said my son's Elvis, and you're like, "Hey, man, Dad, noble idea. You gotta let this bitch go. She's psycho." That's how it feels now. And so, what is the? I mean, then the next thing is how do you walk that out? What does it look like? I don't know. Uh,
Mhm.
what does that look like? Do you say we can't let these people in charge anymore?
Well,
Kinda.
I think we kind of do know what it looks like. I mean, we're seeing like a kind of a great moderation of, people who formerly embraced DEI and all these ESG initiatives. I think they've kind of realized they went too far too fast. And so I think, I do expect more. I mean, you can even look at the Kamala Harris campaign in the Democratic National Convention. And I mean, even see that they were moderating. They had troops on stage, they had law enforcement officers on stage. They stopped burning American flags just long enough to start waving them at the DNC. And so there was a huge moderation of tone. Now, of course, we know who they actually are, but I think they realized that I think Democrats have realized that they've gone too far to the left too soon. And you look at this long incremental march through the institutions, and I think they really messed up because hopefully those institutions get destroyed with a Trump administration. I don't know. I guess I'll hold my breath on that. But I think James Carville actually was right. I mean, he was like yelling and screaming at Democrats, stop doing all this harebrained,
Same
far left social, all this stuff. Just win elections on the economy. And unfortunately, James Carville is a dinosaur. But I am seeing a great moderation. I think one course of action, I mean, these people spent the last couple of generations doing this. What's another generation to have a 100% chance of success, which is the United States is moving to the left every single decade. We are moving to the left on all sorts of social issues. And if they had just waited and not trying to go full bore and just kept using MTV and HBO to indoctrinate and, Blues Clues and Miss Rachel and I don't know, whoever else to indoctrinate a new generation of Americans and use the school system to keep doing this incrementally, they win. They will win. It will take maybe another generation or two and they will win. But for whatever reason, I think they just decided to step on the gas. And I think they messed up. I mean, I think it was a serious strategic error what they did in 2020. And so maybe there is a course of action where they pull back and moderate and lick their wounds and try not to get bent over the barrel too hard by Trump and just and try to retake power in the midterms and then win, induce some kind of financial crisis that maybe tanks Trump and the America First movement. Maybe, I don't know. And then try to get back there in 28 with a clean start. Far more moderate, more Bill Clinton than Kamala Harris. And then just slowly keep grinding down conservative institutions, which is the thing that they've been extremely good at over the past 100 years or so.
The whole going too far. I don't think I think they have realized they've gone too far, but I don't think it's
Mass immigration was a coup de grace. All right, that was the thing. Kamala Harris wins. There's one party, there's some pathway to
yeah.
citizenship or amnesty, and you're one or two election cycles away from your one party rule. It's too far too fast. They couldn't get. I mean, that was a problem even for moderates, even for center left liberals. Even some of them had huge problems with it. So I think between what they did to Trump and then just blatant mass immigration for political gain, I think it was far too obvious. And obviously, the people running the DNC are not the same people who are running down to the Clintons, but I too far too fast, huge backlash, and they get Trump as a reward.
Yeah, I agree. I think had it worked, there obviously there'd be zero regret. They'd be like, I think the only thing they didn't do was they should have either gone 100% harder or they should have gone 50%. Because if it had worked, there'd be no like, hey guys, we need to slow it down. It would be everyone burn your flags. But it comes back to like the vaccination thing. It's like because they didn't get it, it turned into an inoculation, and now the system is rejecting them. And so, like, why did this happen? If this is like a 100-year plan, I think it's actually a more simple explanation. You have the first generation, the Carnegie, the Rockefeller, the whoever, the guys, they're 5 years old and they're working 80-hour weeks and they build the empire. You have the son who's raised directly by the patriarch and they're pretty good at running the empire. They don't have to build it from scratch, but they got a lot of good lessons from dad. Third generation, you maybe have one son that isn't a shithead, the rest are trust fund kids, and they want to divide up the money. Get the fourth generation, it's almost all guys overdosing, blasted on coke, slamming Bugattis into trees. It kind of comes apart. I think we're kind of looking at, and I know it's not direct lineage, but in terms of like 150 year march, I think we're looking at like the spoiled, incompetent trust fund kids, where if you had gone back 80 years and you could somehow bring one of them forward, they'd be like, slow it down. Like, go slowly. Do COVID in 2030. Do the EMP in 2040. You're so close. But the discipline and foresight that those guys had is lacking in the sort of trust fund kids of the whatever globalist initiative. They don't have the feedback mechanisms. They don't value money like grandpa did, who, saved to a nickel. It's because you were born with a gold Bugatti. I think that's what we're seeing. It just I think that's what we're seeing. And, I think if you ran this simulation a million times, I think a lot of times they'd pull it off. I don't think we're living in the most probable outcome. I think we are in like an odd. I don't think there's any other explanation than divine intervention for Butler, but
Mhm.
I think it's something where it's just like it's pretty improbable that we got here. Be grateful for it, and now solidify the win. I think there's a moment of find your balls. They want you dead. The game that we know is over. Act accordingly, and I hope they do that. And it's maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we look back in 50 years and we go, man, we really, we brought in the end of democracy. It's so absurd, from mutilating your children's genitals, the FBI going home in school meetings,
Mhm.
to not to continue to engage in this game is not only willingly ignorant and retarded, it is unethical. It is immoral because we are now the men who don't stop evil. We know how fucked it is, and we're still showing up and being like, well, let's shake hands or work across aisles. Like, they want you dead. They want you dead. They're pedophiles. They hate you. They don't want you to monoclonal antibodies. No, no aid. We can't get you aid in North Carolina, but we can go build a railroad in Lebanon the next day. Go
Mhm.
fuck yourself.
Mhm.
And at this point, it's on us now if we don't do something. They've shown who they are. They're demons from hell. We are now guilty. Eh, Hey, Grandpa, why is the world fucked up? Well, I don't know. I just hoped if I kept appeasing the pedophiles that it would get better. It's on us now. And I don't know what that looks like. We're on the edge of we're on the edge of I don't know where it's going, but I would say fucking anchor yourself in God, move morally, put your best foot forward, and, you know, try to create the best system for the best people. And I don't know what that looks like, but it's not what's been going on. What's been going on's over. The game's over. They're they're lighting the chessboard on fire. It's at this point it's on us if we keep trying to play. So I don't know. That's my 2 cents. So I don't know. I don't know. Trump set up a dictatorship. I'm for it. Um, my words, not Mike's, for the record. But yeah, we've been running for a little over an hour. So we wrap this shit up because I gotta do another call in like 20 minutes. But
Sure.
closing thoughts, closing plugs, anything?
Do your area study. No matter what happens, we go to war with China. There's a cyber attack, a pandemic, dictatorship, or whatever. Your neighborhood is your battlefield. So we really have to understand what our local operating environment is and looks like. And so do your area study. We're looking at threats and hazards, the things that are going to reach out and get us. We got to identify those and prepare for them. And then assets and resources. Who are the local people and what local resources do you have to solve local problems? Because we can get spun up around the axle about what's happening in DC or Beijing or Europe or whatever. But ultimately, your sphere of influence is your neighborhood. That is your battle space. And we need to do an area study so that we can win win
Absolutely.
at the tactical level, and then we string up tactical level victories. We win at the campaign or operational level, and we string up operations or at the campaign levels, and we win on the strategic level. I mean, that really is the fight.
And I also just like to think, we could say we're at the end of America, or we could say, I don't know. I like the idea. I saw some meme where it was like a bunch of time travelers show up yesterday, and they're like, "Is this it?" And you're like, "Is this what?" And they're like, "Oh, everyone's coming back. Everyone wants to see the first days of the golden age." It might be that, man. Like it might be positive. It doesn't have to be all, doom and gloom. This could be the beginning of something fucking incredible. And I'd
Mm,
much rather focus on that and work to not be delusional, but be optimistic. Fill yourself with the grace of God. Like move forward. We're not here by accident. It can be awesome. So that's what I would say. Guys, go in the description, go follow him on Twitter. Dude, I appreciate your time as always.
yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks for having me on, Tommy.
All right, brother. Thank you so much. Till next time, guys, go follow the good man on Twitter. Thank you so much, brother. Guys, thank you.